The first
I
thing I
love this
noticed was
moment
the
with
heat,
you.
not just from
Me
the sun
too.
climbing
Being
high
here with
over
you is
the blue
perfect.
horizon, but from the sudden closeness of him, my boss, sitting far nearer than was professional or expected, his shadow folding into mine on the sand as his voice dropped low enough to feel like it belonged only to my skin, whispering that I should act like I was his tonight, and in that instant the world tilted, because nothing in my carefully controlled life had prepared me for how fast safety could turn into confusion and how quickly a single sentence could rewrite the meaning of trust. Before the story pulls you any deeper into that moment, pause here for just a second. If you believe in kindness, in complicated people, and in the idea that life sometimes gives us second chances in the most unexpected ways, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who loves emotional stories, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that stay with you long after the screen goes dark. My name is Arya Collins, and until that day, my life was a quiet series of predictable routines built to protect me. I worked hard, kept my head down, and followed rules like they were the only language the world understood. I had learned early on that stability didn't come from dreams, but from discipline, and that emotions were things you packed away neatly so they couldn't surprise you later. The beach retreat was supposed to be nothing more than a company-sponsored escape, a way for the marketing firm I worked for to celebrate a year of success. Sun, schedules, polite laughter, and professional smiles. That was the plan. I told myself I would enjoy the daylight, the sound of waves, and the rare feeling of being somewhere open and bright without letting my guard down. I had no idea that daylight could still hold shadows. The resort sat on a wide stretch of golden sand, the kind that reflected sunlight so fiercely it made everything feel exposed. White umbrellas dotted the shore, and coworkers scattered in small groups, laughing louder than they ever did in the office. I felt out of place in my simple dress and wide-brimmed hat, watching people I knew only through emails suddenly become relaxed, human, and unfamiliar. And then there was Rowan Hale, my boss, the man everyone admired from a distance. Calm, respected, successful. He carried authority like it was effortless, like he'd never had to fight for it. To me, he had always been kind but distant, the type of leader who remembered your work, not your personal life. That distance had made him safe. He chose the spot beside me without asking, his presence announced by the subtle shift of sand and the faint scent of salt and something warm, almost comforting. I told myself it meant nothing, that there were limited chairs and he was just another person enjoying the beach. But when he leaned closer, close enough that our arms nearly touched, and spoke those words, my breath caught. Act like you're mine tonight. It wasn't flirtation, not exactly. It sounded urgent, almost heavy, as if the request carried weight he hadn't explained yet. I stared out at the water, my heartbeat loud in my ears, wondering how I'd ended up in a moment that felt both public and intensely private. The challenge wasn't just his request. It was everything it stirred up inside me. I had spent years building boundaries after a past that taught me how easily trust could be misused. I had grown up watching my mother lose herself in other people's expectations, smiling through discomfort because saying no felt harder than enduring. I promised myself I'd be different. Stronger. Clearer. Sitting there on the beach, I felt that promise tremble. The sun was high, the day bright, yet I felt like I was standing at the edge of something uncertain, unsure whether stepping forward would mean falling or finally learning how to stand my ground. As the afternoon stretched on, the reason behind Rowan's closeness slowly unfolded, not through dramatic confessions, but through small, telling details. A tense phone call he ended quickly. A glance toward a group of investors arriving at the resort, their polished confidence clashing with the relaxed setting. I realized the company wasn't just celebrating, it was negotiating. Rowan was under pressure to secure a partnership that could define the future of the firm, and appearances mattered more than honesty in that world. There were whispers, unspoken expectations, and the uncomfortable truth that a stable, respectable image could sway decisions. Somehow, I had been pulled into that image. I struggled with resentment and empathy in equal measure. Part of me wanted to stand up, walk away, and remind him that my life was not a prop in his professional performance. Another part saw the exhaustion in his posture, the way responsibility weighed on him even here, even in the open light of day. The beach, once a symbol of freedom, became a stage where everyone played a role, and I was being asked to improvise without a script. I spent hours wrestling with the choice, watching waves rise and fall, reminding me that nothing stayed still forever. When evening began to hint at its approach, though the sun still ruled the sky, something shifted between us. Not in words, but in silence. Rowan didn't push or insist. He simply stayed near, giving me space to decide, and that restraint surprised me. It challenged the narrative I had built in my head, the one where authority always took without asking. I thought about my own fears, how often I had hidden behind rules to avoid being seen. Maybe this wasn't about pretending to belong to him. Maybe it was about confronting the parts of myself I kept locked away. The decision to stay was not sudden or dramatic. It was quiet, like the moment you step into the ocean and let the water reach your ankles before going any further. I told myself I could leave at any time, that agreeing didn't mean surrendering who I was. As the day softened into late afternoon, we walked along the shoreline, maintaining a careful distance that felt intentional. The sun painted everything gold, and for the first time, I noticed how human Rowan looked outside the office, how his confidence was layered over vulnerability rather than replacing it. What changed me most was not the role I played, but the conversations that happened without words. The way he slowed his steps to match mine. The way he listened when I spoke about my career, my fears of being overlooked, my desire to be more than just reliable. I realized how rarely anyone with power truly listened, and how rarely I allowed myself to speak honestly. The beach, bathed in daylight, became a place of unexpected clarity. I wasn't invisible here. I wasn't small. I was present. The challenge evolved from pretending to belonging to deciding what belonging meant. As people around us observed, assumed, and whispered, I felt the weight of perception, but I also felt a growing sense of control. I wasn't being carried by the story anymore. I was shaping it. The past that once defined my caution no longer felt like a chain, but like a lesson I could carry without letting it drag me down. I saw in Rowan not a savior or a threat, but another flawed person navigating expectations he didn't fully believe in either. By the time the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the sand, I understood that this day had given me something rare, the chance to rewrite my relationship with fear. I had spent so long avoiding situations that blurred lines that I forgot how growth often lives there. Not in danger, but in discernment. Not in silence, but in choosing when to speak. The beach, still alive with laughter and light, felt like a turning point I hadn't planned but desperately needed. As the retreat drew toward its evening events, the unspoken agreement between us transformed. It was no longer about acting or pretending. It was about mutual respect and the understanding that kindness could exist even in complicated circumstances. Rowan's gratitude was evident not in grand gestures, but in the way he stepped back, giving me my autonomy without question. That, more than anything, healed something in me I didn't know was still aching. Before we reach the end of this story, take a moment here. If you're feeling connected to this journey, if these emotions feel familiar, please comment below and let us know what part resonated with you most. Your words matter more than you think. The most powerful change happened after the beach, after the sunlight faded and the retreat ended. I returned to my life with a different posture, a quiet confidence born not from approval, but from self-trust. I spoke up more in meetings. I set boundaries without apologizing. I stopped shrinking to fit spaces that demanded too little of me. And Rowan, true to the respect he showed that day, became an ally rather than an authority, someone who valued my voice without needing me to play a role. Looking back, I don't remember the beach for the discomfort or the confusion. I remember it for the clarity it gave me. For the way daylight revealed truths I'd been avoiding. For teaching me that sometimes, the moments that scare us are invitations, not traps. Invitations to step into ourselves fully, even when the path isn't clear. Just before this story ends, here's a special request. Comment one word that describes how this story made you feel. One honest word. It helps this community grow and lets others know they're not alone in their emotions. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of a moment when you chose courage over comfort, please like, share, and engage with this video. Your support helps keep stories like this alive, stories about ordinary people finding strength in unexpected places, under open skies, in the middle of a bright, ordinary day that changed everything.